19th Dome, Brighton, 21st de Montfort Hall, Leicester, 22nd St George's Hall, Bradford, 23rd Empire, Liverpool, 24th off, 3rd is off, 4th is Paris.
The Peter Gabriel Band is on the road. Before them, a series of one-night stands in 40 European cities. Behind the scenes, a backup operation that would outface the Normandy landings. For today's pop star needs to be more than a singer. He needs to be a poet, actor, and ringmaster of a flying circus. He needs 10 tons of equipment, and most of all, he needs a convoy. And anywhere in Europe, that means the Kent-based firm of Edwin Shirley Trucking.
I'd call it rock and roll madness. This tour, for instance, is just slightly over 2 months long. 42 concerts, which means that I'll load and unload this truck 82 times. And there's no set routine. It's not like having a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week. Sometimes I can wake up in the morning and think, Christ, what day is it? Where am I, in fact? I've done that a lot of times, and it's really strange to wake up and think, Christ, what day is it? And, you know, what city am I in, you know? But it can happen.
We regularly go to about 20 different countries. They all have different rules and regulations. Some let trucks drive on Sundays, some don't. Some have borders closed at night, some don't. You've got to know all the rules and regulations. And then you've got to translate that to the lunatics you're dealing with.
When a tour is badly organised, when the tour manager isn't very good at his job, then things can start to go wrong. Just a badly organised tour can make things hard work. If the tour manager doesn't get it together with the promoter for proper help at the concerts, we're totally reliant on the ability of the people in charge, the management. And if the management is bad, it's bad all the way down the line.
Some of the American bands are totally crazy. The other thing is that they're used to America, where there's 3,000 miles of open road, no borders, no sea crossings. I mean, sometimes with Americans, they book a show in London and a show in Paris, and they want to get to Paris at 8 AM after getting out of London at 2 AM the same morning. And they say, what's the problem? It's only 500 miles. And you have to show them a map and say, look, see that blue bit there? That is sea. And you can't drive across it. You have to get a ferry. And this is a different country. And, you sometimes have to start at scratch.
It's a mad world of late nights and hard driving, with barely a chance to sit back, look around, or snatch a few minutes kip. But the top bands are now competing to put the biggest, most extravagant shows on the road. The fee for Shirley's 2 Volvos on the Gabriel tour is £18,000.
That maybe in a nutshell is what it is. It's just going places you've never been before and maybe you wouldn't get to go to without it. Granted, rock and roll may not be the best way to see it because you live your life in a coach or in a bus, a minivan, right? Or whatever, a car, maybe a plane if the tour is big and expensive. You see the back of concert halls and you see mountains as you go by them, or cathedrals or whatever. You might get lucky like I did with Wings. I was there in Venice for 4 days. Hell, I would have never done that. It's just a chance for me to go. Until I get tired of going, I guess I'll continue to do it.
Public truck drivers are great philosophers because you spend quite a lot of time on your own. It gives you a lot of time to think and things to look at as well. Yeah, it's interesting. I get a buzz off it. Yeah, I like it. So
sort of things do you think about when you've just been through a scene like we've seen in the last few nights, you know, with all this music pounding in your ears, you know, and you've been operating the follow spot? What do you think about afterwards when you get away?
Well, characters, people I might see and meet and talk to during or after the concert. Perhaps the odd girl here and there, I don't know. Just people you meet.
What sort of gear are you travelling with? I mean, it's worth a lot of money.
Well, yes, it's very valuable, very expensive. And a lot of it's very personalised as well, because you can imagine a musician will, how can I put it, acquire instruments over a number of years that he gets very attached to. Personalised pieces of equipment that should he lose or get damaged, they'd be extremely angry, I'm sure.
You are conscious of where you're going, but you lose track of the time in which the time you spend in each place, because it normally isn't very long, and you lose track of how far you've travelled. You might suddenly find yourself 2,000 miles from where you started and not really realise you've got 2,000 miles to go back. You know.
The first few days are pretty hectic. Everyone's trying to get their own personal gig together. And once that starts coming together and people start loosening up, then you go through a period of pretty much relaxed, good time. Everybody's having a good time and enjoying themselves. And then after you've been on the road in this confined environment for a while, you start getting a little edgy and people start annoying you, and things that they've been doing every day that you've wondered every day why they do it that way because you think it should be done some other way. You start to sound off about it. So then you go through a period of everybody getting on each other's case. And then you get to the point where the tour is almost over. You've got maybe 7, 8 gigs to go. And at that point, it doesn't matter. He can go ahead and do it that way. Even if you do know a better way, go ahead, do it 7 more times and we'll go home. And then, of course, the best time is when you close the door of the truck after the last show.
What?
I started this thing with the idea of hopefully someday getting into a studio and just being a studio engineer behind a desk, like very many people do. Most people that I know that come from my side of the production end, right? We go in and say, well, someday we're going to be an engineer. We won't be humping boxes. We won't be doing all the jive stuff. We won't have to sweat like everybody, like we used to. Well, that's it. You work for something at the end. Everybody's got a goal. That's mine, to be a studio engineer.
Everything's working. It's all right.
No worries when you bring the band up.
All right?
Can you believe us now?
You go into a hall that is not meant for rock and roll. It's meant for theater or for oratory or something, but it's not for loud rock and roll or anything like that. So you carry all these boxes in, and every day it's an improvisation. You know, you have to use what you have, and you build on it, whatever it is. So you go into a place that is very, very small, and you've got all this gear, so you just do what you can, you stack it up. If you win that day, you know, you feel great about it. You leave, you tear it all down, you walk out, you beat the hell out of the place, is what we say.
I suppose there's a sort of pride in what you're doing, and a loyalty to the people that you're working with, rather. And just doing something that a lot of other people don't do, and enjoying it all the time.
Do you find yourself in the role of sort of mother hen to a lot of extroverts? Is that a difficulty?
Yeah, that certainly in my job, dealing with the group, there is a certain aspect of that. But some musicians are totally self-sufficient. You can tell them the night before, we're leaving at 10, and you know they're going to be in the hotel lobby with all their suitcases packed at 10. Others, you can tell them 3 times the night before, and then you have to ring them 2 hours before you go, an hour before you go, a quarter of an hour, and they're still not ready on time. You know, they vary.
Does everybody matter in the crew? I mean, you're obviously going to say yes because they'll be watching, but how conscious are you of all their different roles, or is it just a load of things that happen and you don't get involved?
Oh, no, everybody's role is very clearly defined. Not necessarily before we start on the road. Quite often, I'll notice things aren't getting done. And I may have an idea about whose job that is, but the crew may have different ideas, and that kind of thing has to get sorted out right as early as possible. And once someone has accepted responsibility for that role, then I know who to jump on when it's not organised.
The attractive angles for me on some tours that I do, especially during the summer months, are perhaps days off that I might get in exotic places, perhaps in the south of France, on the coast, or in Switzerland or any country, just days off. Sometimes if we have a few days off and I can get friendly with the local people, and perhaps they might take me back to their homes and things like that, which has happened. That's sweet and nice, and that's when the job is an absolute pleasure to do. Tempers do fray, and can often just sometimes turn into a fight, but very rarely. You can imagine when you've been on the road for like a month, been away from home, you're getting tired, perhaps run down. Tempers do start to fray. But also, people that have been on the road for a while know and understand this and become tolerant. And in fact, I myself become more tolerant the longer the tour is, because I know and understand what's happening to me and the people around me. So I adjust to it. Bubble and Squeak, a really unique service. I'd heard about them before, but this is the first tour that I've actually seen them and eaten their food. And it really is just an incredibly excellent service. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but certainly not very long. And they provide, throughout the whole of the day, from the time that we get to the concert, with coffee, rolls, sticky buns first thing in the morning, and a 3-course meal later, and drinks, and tea and coffee all the time.
We use fresh vegetables, fresh meat, fresh fruit as much as possible. Sometimes we've got to resort to convenience foods, but there's one thing about road crews that, although they might be doing a hard job and working long hours, they earn a lot of money for a start, and they expect good quality things, and if they don't get it, they let you know in no uncertain manner. For example, they wouldn't think twice about throwing something back at you if they didn't like it.
Throwing it at you?
Oh, definitely.
Why have you been talking? I mean, all these amazing concoctions are coming out. Don't you feel tempted to do convenience food? It must be much easier for you.
The crew wouldn't accept it. The crew expect to eat reasonably well, and once or twice we've been late, or we've run down, we've broken down, we've bought tinned potatoes or frozen chips, and as soon as we've served it to the crew, they've let us know in no uncertain manner. So we decided it's not worth it.
You obviously love the thing, you wouldn't do it, but don't you is there things that really get on your nerves about having to cater like this when you're professionals and you work in professional circumstances?
No, because we think we're professional enough to overcome any problems. That's what we're being paid for, and that's what we're doing. And it's not a lot of different to what we've seen in so-called professional places before anyway.
My brother was a truck driver, and he'd happened into the business like this. He was sitting in a pub one day and bumped into a friend that was working for the Bonzo Dog Doodah band, and they needed a driver, I think, just for a few gigs, and he started with them, and it just went from there. That's how he got into it, and that's how I got into it as well, by driving. I packed in my job. My parents freaked. They thought I was doing a very foolish thing, and in fact there were times when I did too. But I stuck it out. Took the course, went privately, paid for it, 2-week course, and in fact failed my test the first time, but got it the second time around, and worked for a general haulage firm in my hometown in Stoke, which is the worst job I've ever had. It was a terrible job. And I used to pick up cornflakes from Liverpool on a flatbed lorry that had to be roped and sheeted. And I did this run all the time from Liverpool to Glasgow, and then I had to phone back to get a return load, which could be anything from pickles, it could be absolutely anything, and back to Stoke again.
Basically, when you're on the road, you tend to lose track of time from one day to the other. You're conscious of moving, because obviously you go through certain discomforts maybe in travelling, but it's made as best as possible for you. But you might find yourself in one hall in one place, and suddenly think, where was I 2 or 3 days ago? And you don't know where you were. You're conscious of the place you were in, but you're not conscious of what day it was. Well, basically, I started playing guitar, and I got to a stage where you know that you've either got the talent to play guitar well or you haven't. You know, I think there's a stage like that. I just felt I didn't, and so I just left it. And then I had this interest in music, had this interest in the people that were in music, and eventually one thing led to the other, you know, and you're actually doing it.
The social life itself, I mean, the only social life you have is with the 12 other guys and the coach. You know, you're in somewhat of a time warp. Everything outside of these 12 people and these shows we do every day, you know, the news of the world, all that's irrelevant. You know, it doesn't affect you, and you're not aware of it. So that's the real social life that you have. And anything else back home, you know, the personal life that you have or have had or would like to have, you know, you pretty much have to sacrifice that because there's just no way to keep it going.
And apart from the joys of travel, I mean, what effect has it had on you personally with relationships in the past?
Oh, well, it's cost me a couple, but the relationship that it cost me, it also gave me, right? The Lamb Lies Down tour that Genesis did in the States, I just met a lady, we were getting to know each other, and it turns out when we went on the road, Peter didn't have anyone doing his costumes. At that time, he was into very elaborate costumes and everything. And as it turned out, she got the gig. So we spent a month on the road, became very close, got back home, moved in together. And we spent a few months together at home, and then I came back over here with Genesis, which, like I say, lasted for like 4 months. And by the time we got home, you know, all the things that we had in common or that we had shared in that month on the road, there'd been that 4-month gap, and they were just lost, you know. It's not fair to the lady at home, first of all, you know, to sit home every night and, you know, and write letters to no telling where, hoping they'll catch you in time. And it's not fair to the guy on the road either, wondering, you know, what is she doing tonight, you know.
We used to wear suits and short hair and wait on we used to do a lot of things conventional ways. And we came on the road, we had to relearn everything. And since we've been on the road, we've been on the road now for 9 months to a year. And every week we're learning something new.
Well, why did you change your appearance?
Because we wanted to fit in with the crew. In fact, when we first started, we were different. And as soon as we were labelled different, the crew kept the distance. They wouldn't ask us for different things. They just came, sat down, ate and went. Now we're treated as part of the crew. And yesterday, cooking in the toilet. Tomorrow we might be cooking in a full-scale university kitchen if we're lucky. Depends completely on the venue. So we go from the sublime to the ridiculous. So we have to choose our menu to suit where we're cooking, the environment. You know.
And what happened to the toilet? I mean, how do you cope with that?
The toilet was off it, so what we do, we just ask people not to use it. But all the time we're aware that it is a toilet, so obviously things aren't left uncovered and lying about.
So what sort of menu did you do last night in the toilet?
Yesterday we did spaghetti bolognese, which was a pretty simple menu to do.
How does this work out with you just flying down from Paris now a couple of hours before the show, and there's your gear, you don't even know if it's tuned, presumably?
Well, in this case, with the guy who's doing them now, David, I could actually get up on stage without ever touching my drums, never play them, just step right on and do a show and really feel, not be worried at all about how things work. He's amazing. He actually tunes my drums for me, which I don't know anybody no one's ever done that before for me. He knows more about drums than I do, for sure. I couldn't even begin to tell him anything about what he's doing up here.
Tell me this thing about the equipment, you know, the vast amount of it and the effects that you create.
Well, you can get away with a lot maybe for a short while, but you can't get a long-term relationship with an audience unless you have unless you can deliver the goods. And there are 1 or 2 acts one can think of that seem to rely more on sensation than they do on music. But the other point is just that the number of people that are interested in coming to see it. If 5,000 people want to see a thing rather than 500, and you don't give them that opportunity, or you play in a 500-seater club, a lot of people that would want to see it won't be able to. And the equipment is a means through which one can try and generate the same excitement that you would in a small club to a large number of people.
It's hard, seeing as we do a tour, 40, 50 dates in a 3-month period, playing the same show pretty much. the audience is real important, because that's the difference between one night and the next. You know what I mean? If the audience is real receptive, and there's the energy coming from the audience, it almost always we're able to put it back out. It just seems to happen that way.
Nobody wants to do this stuff forever. Because what point is it? I mean, we're making other people rich from our talents, right? Which is true. We do that. Granted, the stars are the stars, and they're what people come to see. But these people wouldn't be anybody without us. You know, if we didn't have people running the lights and creating the moods and carrying the flow and stuff, and the same thing with sound, people creating effects or whatever, just people that hump the gear. Without us, it wouldn't happen.
What about the music and the show? Do you ever get into that?
Oh, you have to, don't you? I mean, you can't do this for 2 months, you know, same music every night without getting into it. Although I have done it before without getting into it. That's no fun. This show, yeah, I like.
The front rows, if they're lit up, are very important for me, in that I just work very much off the energy that the audience gives me. If they're uninhibited and they seem to be having a good time, it's much easier for me to do that too. And if I'm a long way from the audience, you know, I insist that we don't have any crash barriers in front of the stage for that reason. I like to be up in close contact.
That guy on stage is not Peter Gabriel. It's someone that he has manufactured and that we've all contributed to. So Peter's out there for all of us, more or less. That sounds very corny, I'm sure, but it's really true. He's the end result of what goes on here from 9 o'clock on, and I think everyone realizes that.
This particular tour is a hard one. There were a lot of back-to-backs, not really much time off. And in fact, it's just work and sleep. Almost 2 months of work and sleep. We're about halfway through now. 42 concerts, and a lot more to go. And sometimes I think, Christ, what am I doing? You know, I must get out of this business. But, you know, it wears off. I still like it as much. So what do you enjoy about it? I enjoy working hard, I suppose. I enjoy working.
To keep in silence, I resigned. My friends would think I was a nut.
Okay, Phil, after Peter Gabriel, I wonder if you fancy doing Harry Belafonte. Starts on the 24th in Saarbrücken, then it's 25th off, 26th Zurich, 27th off, then 4 days in Hamburg, with the 5th off, the 6th Frankfurt, 7th off. Oslo, 12th Copenhagen, 13th and 14th off, 15th 18th off, 19th off, 20th Vienna and the 21st, 22nd